Despite the advancements Fallout 4 made to the Fallout franchise, some considered it to be a step back in certain areas of the game. The story is one of those areas, and with Fallout 4's first major DLC, Bethesda tried to remedy that. Can you beat Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC without taking any damage? Unlike Fallout New Vegas, there isn't a specific level requirement to start Far Harbor. Instead, you just have to get to a certain point in the story. The Getting a Clue quest must be completed. I could have made a new character that's as generic as possible, like I did for Fallout New Vegas' DLCs, but I really didn't feel like doing that. I loaded one of my prior saves from the Legendary Weapons Only playthrough, a save shortly after I rescued Nick Valentine, spoke to Ellie in Nick's office, and the DLC sorta begins. The first thing I did was strip myself naked and upgrade my limited arsenal of weapons at Sanctuary, and set off for the northeast corner of the map. You probably know the way this works by now. I used a console command to set my max health to 1, so that any damage of any kind will kill me and automatically reload my most recent save. I did have to remove 2 of my perks, Toughness and Nerd Rage, because they either provided annoying benefits or got in the way of me only being able to take 1 damage before dying. The only thing worth mentioning that happened on my way out to the Nakano residence was that I got myself stuck and diddled to death by a group of raiders who ambushed me shortly after I entered a tower. I spent several minutes there before I decided that the pain wasn't worth it, went around the area, and met Mr. and Mrs. Nakano. Their daughter is missing, and it's up to me to find out where she went. They couldn't be bothered to listen to the holotapes she left behind, or put any effort into anything at all. I admire that. These people are okay. Kasumi had gone down the unfortunate rabbit hole of questioning her very existence and wondering whether everything she remembers is a figment of her imagination. If life as she knew it had never happened at all. She left for Far Harbor, so I hot-wired the boat with my mind and set sail for the island. Skinny Arms and Beanie Guy, whose voice reminds me of someone from Fallout New Vegas, greeted me at the docks and informed me that Kasumi did indeed pass through their little settlement. But just then, the fog attacked. It's like the Mist, but instead of it being a mist with tentacle monsters that invade cities and uses interdimensional insects to implant babies in unwilling hosts, creatures emerge from the fog and lay siege to Far Harbor. They're weird looking, tougher than Jesus, and spit molten balls of lava from their face holes. It was here I realized that this may be more difficult than I anticipated, which was unfortunate, as I had just started Skyrim's Dragonborn DLC not long before this and stopped after I got mauled to death by a werewolf bear. I spent more of my ammo here than I should have. I shouldn't have spent any at all, since there were several NPCs that can't die, and would eventually kill the legendary Mirelurk on their own. But the day was won, no thanks to me, and the legendary Mirelurk dropped a nocturnal board. Avery dropped a few subtle clues that the folks of Far Harbor are in need of my assistance. I decided against it because her name is Avery, and in 7th grade, a kid named Avery sat in front of me in English and got his dandruff all over my desk. Both of them can drop dead for all I care. I got a free round of alcohol from Mitch, that's classic Mitch right there, and told Longfellow that I'd come to bargain. Together, we set out for Arcadia, so I could continue my search for Kasumi. The fog is irradiated, which brings us to radiation. To put it simply, radiation damage doesn't count as damage like a bullet to the eye or choking on watermelon does. It doesn't do damage, it just lowers your maximum health. It doesn't become fatal until you reach 1000 rads, therefore it doesn't matter. Any damage, regardless of how much radiation I have, will still kill me. As we marched up the mountain, we encountered a group of wild animals calling themselves wolves. I backed the fuck up, thinking I could get them to follow me so I could pick them off from a place they couldn't reach. Then I blew them up with a grenade. One of them was legendary, and was sure to drop something awesome. It very well could have been something awe-inspiring. I wouldn't know because I couldn't find the body. It was gone forever, like most of YouTube after Kappa takes effect. A Children of Atom stopped us in our path and bestowed upon me the gift of freezing my game for a minute or two. Not long later, Longnose and I got to Arcadia. The way he spoke to me made me think he wanted to come along on my adventures. I'm always willing to help out the elderly, which is why I told him to piss off and I never saw him again. Inside Arcadia, I met Dima. It explained as best it could to me and my simple brain what exactly it was and what it needed from me. but I needed something from him too. One of the tubes sticking out of his head would look great atop my Christmas tree, and, less importantly, I required the whereabouts of Kasumi. Before continuing my search, I sold a bunch of stuff to Dejin, bought myself a little combat rifle, and finally found Kasumi. She was as alive as anything programmed to feel alive could be. She wanted to know what Dima was really up to, why he was so nice and selfless and emotionless with his speaking. Never trust anyone who is monotone at all times. They're probably hiding something. I had a very brief conversation with Dumbo about the fog condensers and other nonsense before getting more information from Dima about what his true intentions were. What he and his constituents want is to live in peace in a place where a robot can pretend to be a person. To that end, there are some memories Dima locked away and purged from his head, like when I drunk dialed my landlord earlier this year. Once I regained consciousness the next morning, I removed the call from my phone and pretended it never happened. Back outside, I had two objectives: retrieve hard drives for someone and gather Dima's memories. I set off for the storage drives first. I got into a brief skirmish with a group of trappers living in a destroyed house by an irradiated lake. Ignoring the multiple shots I missed, it wasn't too terribly tough to remove their souls from our dimension. The legendary trapper was a problem at first, but my kindergarten teacher taught me well that there's no problem in life that can't be solved with a grenade. The legendary trapper's gift for me was truly worthless. I kept pressing onward and spent more than a few of my 9 lives on a trapper with an automatic weapon. Automatics always make these sorts of runs more difficult. They do less damage than semi-automatics, but that is irrelevant when a feather forcefully shoved up my left nostril is enough to kill me. I eventually used one of my few 44 Magnum rounds on his spine and found the storage drives for Dumbo. Some trappers nearby the Vim building bothered me in the same way most living creatures do. Then I arrived at the Nucleus, the heart of the children of Adam. I allowed myself one attempt to wipe them all out, and when that failed, I spoke to Grand Zealot Richter about becoming a child of Adam. I drank the irradiated water from Adam's spring. My vision got wobbly, but my intestinal fortitude has more in common with the weeble wobble that won't fall down than your standard set of human intestines, so the shadow figure and green haze didn't bother me too much. The feral ghouls, specifically the Reavers, at my vision's destination were a bit annoying. Anything with a spooky skull next to its name is a real problem to deal with. I eventually figured out the puzzle inside the glowing room, retrieved the sacred icon, returned to the Grand Zealot, went inside the worship chamber to hear the words of Confessor Tectus, and journeyed into the command center to brute force my way through all the pre-war defenses until I got to Dima's terminal. This was a little tricky. At first, I assumed the laser tripwires were all there were. I was very wrong. Not the most wrong I've ever been, but still pretty wrong. After all, I'm the same person who once got a -5% on a math assignment because I got every question wrong and forgot to put my name on it. The machine gun turrets mounted on the walls are weak, but devastatingly effective at their single task. You have very little time to destroy them before they take aim and fire at you with their laser pointer accuracy. The Protectrons were similar, annoyingly accurate and tougher than a turret to destroy. Then came the final defense force, the Assaultron. I'd gathered a staggering amount of mines in preparation for this assault. As I haven't played Elmo's number journey yet, 2 is a pretty big number to me. To my surprise, they were more than enough to destroy the Assaultron in its path. The few remaining turrets and robots were dealt with. I entered the command center's central control area, flipped the old power flipper, and nearly shit myself. A legendary Assaultron woke from its nap and came after me. I didn't even attempt to fight at first. I immediately ran away. As I fled, I took the occasional shot at the bitch and shut every door behind me until I had time to formulate a plan. Jet, Psycho, and a submachine gun were laughably ineffective. My teacher was right again. A grenade once again saved the day. I got a worthless piece of armor from it and could begin retrieving Dima's memories with Faraday's program. This took me far longer than it should have. I'm not a communist. I oppose the execution of those I don't like. Unless they deserve it, then it's alright. But whoever decided puzzles should be in a Fallout game, and mandatory ones at that, is shit. I'm gonna save you from most of the agony that I couldn't save myself from, and tell you that this was not in any way fun. You can't take damage in the simulation, so these can be completed the same way they'd be completed outside of a challenge. The first 3 were easy enough. The 4th one took longer but wasn't necessarily difficult. The 5th one was. I can't place all the blame on the game though, because I sorta forgot that you can store all the code blocks. Instead of storing them all and placing them as needed, I would manually move them from one location to another. This sped up gameplay probably showcases what I mean better than I could ever describe it with words and letters. Realizing that I'd been doing it all wrong the entire time was both amazing and incredibly frustrating. It wasn't even me that figured it out. I got stuck on the 5th puzzle and watched a video on YouTube to see how to do it. Had I not seen that video, I'd have never started doing it the way God Howard intended. Then I didn't even do it as intended. I was tired of puzzles and just wanted it to be over. Place a few things in a specific spot, and you'll trick the game into thinking that you did it properly. The code bugs retrieve their information, and that digital hellhole was finally filled in. Next came the task of finding 3 caches scattered around the island that Dima planted in the land before time. First, I bought and sold garbage with the Children of Adam. Then I set off for the wind farm kill switch code. Not long after leaving the Nucleus, I encountered a group of beasts that were being led by a legendary Mirelurk Razorclaw. Believe it or not, radiation-based weapons don't really work on creatures that exist thanks to radiation. After I tried a shotgun and my corpse cartwheeled into the drink, I decided to just ignore them. I had not gotten anything useful from legendary enemies yet, no reason to assume this one would drop anything worthwhile. Fate had other plans. Not even 5 minutes later, I ran into a legendary glowing angler. My combat rifle was actually capable of doing a fair bit of damage to it and its companions. Dodging their spitballs wasn't all that difficult either. By the time the beast fell before me, I'd used a solid chunk of my ammo, and from its carcass, I found a pool cue. Cool. A large amount of bad things were between me and the first cache. I ignored them, traveled to the Vim building I discovered several pages ago, and got to work tracking down the next piece of the pie. Thankfully, the building and surrounding area were the base for super mutants. Compared to what lurks in the shadows on the island, these guys are a treat to fight. 2 of them, held up in a sort of building within a building, gave me some trouble for reasons I've already mentioned. Once they were dealt with, I spent a little while working my way through all the green guys atop the building. My 10mm pistol was far more effective against them than I would have thought, and one of them even had a missile launcher for me, which was a nice thing for it to do. Back inside, a few of the muties were rude enough to fight back. This here enforcer was a problem. I tried a multitude of different weapons against him, but none were effective enough to end his life before he ended mine. At least, none were effective until I pulled out the missile launcher. I killed his dog, as bonus psychological and emotional damage, weakening him for the barrage of bullets I was about to pump into his freakish body. He eventually died. I tried playing in what looked like radioactive waste, but was only sody pop. And I found Dima's second cache, which revealed Avery was a synth, proving I was right to not like her. Before leaving, I convinced Kyle to let me inside his chamber, which was where I found December's Child, a neat-looking legendary weapon that I never used once. I also found a custom set of power armor that I left behind because why would I need that, and left to find the nuclear launch key. More brutes and whatnot were camped out on the buildings in the area. Inside, the Harper Grand Hotel were even more. None of them were any sort of a threat to me, or got in the way of me completing the task at hand. Inside the safe room, I found a holotape, which pointed me towards a submarine near the Fringe Cove docks. Down in the water, within the submerged marine, I found the key. After taking the key, a bunch of monsters emerged from the ground, or wherever they call home, to be a nuisance. I really didn't feel like fighting them, so I swam away like the fugu fish and returned to Arcadia to talk to Dima about everything I'd found. He was not thrilled about most of it, especially the part where he had to remember that he hid his memories to keep him from remembering that he murdered someone and used a synth for his own sick ideas. His solution? Do it again. I like his idea. Kill someone in the name of peace. To accomplish this task, I had to track down some holotapes from the former confessor of the Children of Adam that Dima could use to create a web of digital lies that I could use to trap the current confessor. I used Dima's fake tape to convince Confessor Tectus that Confessor Martin was returning and looking for vengeance. But I had to tell him in private. I couldn't risk letting any children hearing me murder him. And murder him I did. I had to dispatch of his guards because that's what friends are for. Once they were all about as dead as my dog, I hid their bodies behind the wall and returned to Dima to let him know that the deed was done. His counterfeit Tectus was ready, and now Dima controlled both the Children of Adam and Far Harbor. Like a god, he could look down from his mountain and shape the wills of both populations. I convinced Kasumi to return home, left Far Harbor, tried to kill Kasumi and her parents, but that's not an option because Bethesda, and I beat Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC without taking any damage. And that's going to do it for this video about whether or not you can beat Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC without taking any damage. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Thanks to the Champion tier members as well as the other channel supporters for helping make videos like this one possible. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server through a link in the video description. Follow me on Twitter at Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.